My guest this morning was with us a few months ago, and it's Dr. Jahon Vance. And we had such a good time talking. As a matter of fact, since he's a returning guest, I'm going to go ahead and let him introduce himself. And then we're going to talk about a lot of different things. And interestingly enough, it's going to line up with what I just read today for February 5th from Iyanla Vanzant's book. As a matter of fact, since Jahon and I were talking, I'm probably going to read it again and we're going to apply it to African-American men. So with that being said, also in between that time that we're going to talk about, the time that he was on the show before, and now he launched a clothing line. So we're going to talk about all of that within the next hour or so. So let somebody know. Get on all of your social media sites. Tweet somebody, text somebody, put your post on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever social media you want. Tell them they need to tune in on gobrave.org. If they are in the northern New Jersey area, 88.7 FM radio. They also can catch us on the TuneIn Radio Network. If they go to the TuneIn app or, go to their computer on TuneIn Radio Network and put in WPSC, it will bring up the studio, or the show rather, and they can just click on that and they can hear it. And so any way that you can, there's more than one way that you can hear the show, and I encourage you to let somebody else know that it's on. So with that being said, Dr. Vance, how you doing?
Brother Medley, I am okay. I heard you this morning, and in the Garden State of New Jersey, it is 19 degrees. Don't worry. It's only 27 degrees in the state of Maryland. So I'm a few degrees warmer than you all, so I'm not complaining.
So you at 27. We only going to get to a high of 30 today, so you're about where we're going to get to as a high.
Wow.
But I tell you, we've been, because now this is the interesting thing. We were laughing and joking about the weather. The last couple of Saturdays, I've been leaving home, and it's been like 9 and 12 degrees. So I was kind of like, when I woke up this morning, like, okay, what is it going to be this week? Especially when they're talking about all this freezing rain. So that's why when I sent you the text yesterday, I said, well, the show is still on as far as I know. I don't know what's going to change overnight. So I get up this morning and look at the weather. It's like I was at about 19, 20, 25 degrees somewhere around. I was like, okay, that's not as bad as it's been the last couple of weeks when I was leaving here at 9 and 12. So that only 19 and 25 feels like a heat wave. So 27, I know, feels pretty good down there.
Yes, very, very good. And listen, I am so excited to be back. I know we talked some months ago, and I was like, I'm mentally counting down, like, okay, listen, Brother Medley and I, we have to get back together. So I'm anxiously awaiting to share with the constituents. So good morning to everyone. Who's out there in radio land, technology land, media land. We are really, really excited. And as Brother Medley stated, we just have a lot to share to empower you, to give you information, and even some food and questions for thought as we look at education, socialization, just politically across the country. And so just real quickly, for those of you, if you're listening for the first time on this morning, if you didn't catch me over the summer, just a faculty member, an educator, a lover of teaching and learning, a parent, a concerned citizen, one who doesn't just talk it, but I live what I talk about, I work what I talk about, and I'm an activist in what I talk about. And I don't have Miss Winfrey's money or Mr. Perry's money, but in my own right, Brother Medley, I do serve as an educational philanthropist to give back and a number of ways to help pave those unbroken roads and to establish permanent bridges to get our students of color, our faculty of color, in particular our males of color, to a safe foundation where they become productive, lifelong, productive citizens in this great global divide.
And see, it's great because this is, as you know, February, Black History Month. Now, we always, and we say it facetiously, but at the same time, it is true. Black history is not just limited to 1 month. However, right, since that's where we kind of commemorate it, all right, we'll acknowledge it is Black History Month. But I had a publisher contact me the other day, and she wanted to know, what was our thoughts or how do I approach my students concerning, Black History Month and Black history. And so I quickly emailed her back and says, well, first off, Black history for us is not just in February. It's 365 days of the year. And I was able to show lesson plans and photos and presentations that we had made, and she was blown away. She was in awe. You do all of that in your... Yes, we do that every day, not just in February. But I'm saying all that to say, this is a wonderful time to have the discussion that me and Brother Vance are going to have this morning, because it is, or it does pertain to the fact that we are commemorating this month for Black history, or African American history, because what we're going to be talking about is African American males, particularly support that they need in relation to exactly what I read about this morning with Iyanla Vanzant's book about hurting, folks hurting. All right. So I'm going to read that again. But the reason you keep hearing Brother Vance and I calling each other brother is because we are part of the greatest fraternity in the world. And that is none other than... One more time. That's right. The greatest fraternity in the world. And that is none other than Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I know I had Steve Pemberton on last week, and he was a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, and we had a good time teasing each other about that. But without a doubt, we are first of all servants of all. We shall transcend all. And Jahon, like he just said, he doesn't just say that. He doesn't just talk that talk. He walks that walk. You heard him say he was an educator. He's down in the Baltimore area. Very quickly, we met because his company was doing some consultation work with Patterson Public Schools, and I was in that session. And I was, at that point, didn't know we were in the same fraternity. And I was so taken by his presentation that I reached out to him, and that's when I was saying, you know what, I really want to have you on my show because you're speaking, might speak, what we do, so on and so on. And that's how we came about for the first show. But the reason we keep calling each other brother because we're in the same fraternity, but we also have the same outlook, and we're also educators, and we're also looking to do the same thing with our African American males. Now, my particular case, because my school is an all-male school, is a single-gender school, predominantly African-American and Hispanic males. That's another reason why we constantly are going back and forth with each other, too, because this is an audience. This is a group that is constantly, one, being overlooked, but secondly, when they are being looked at, it's always for something negative. And I read for you this morning, there's a root behind why people do what they do. All right. And when you start looking at black men, because Dr. Vance, Brother Vance, this is the thing. I was sharing with you. I didn't know if you were listening prior to coming on or not. But this past week, one of my former students just got caught up with a murder. He just got arrested. Him and two other comrades got arrested for a murder in the city. Now, this is the crazy thing. 3 students from the same city wound up murdering a student that had just got a full ride scholarship to one of our local colleges here at Montclair State University. He was going in the house now this is, it comes no more movie script than this. He's going in the house, taking in the groceries for his grandmother, and gets gunned down. I don't know if it was stray bullet or crossfire or what. And turns out one of the 3 people that was a part of that shooting was one of my former students, African-American male. These are the folks that Jahon works with down in the Baltimore area and in the community college down there. And if you wouldn't mind quickly kind of sharing some of the experiences you've had as you've worked with African-American males in that community college setting.
Brother Medley, and it's very unique. The composition of the young men that I work with, if anyone has ever seen The Wire, some of the Barksdale brothers, they're actually real. And I've taught some of those gentlemen. And what you saw on television actually occurs in reality. I have gentlemen we use the term vacation. They've been incarcerated multiple times. Some dropped out of high school. Some didn't receive a GED. Returning, been to jail, they come home. Some are parents. Some were on drugs. And deep inside of them, Brother Medley and audience, although some may have faced some severe adverse situations, down inside, first of all, they're human. We have to remember that they're human. But they have a dream and a desire to taste and experience and to live success. They just didn't have the, as we say, Brother Medley, you watched a good football game, they didn't have a coach who had a playbook with the plays in it that they could read and interpret and apply for a situation. And it was just wonderful, as you were saying about your young students that you're working with. Brother Medley, 3 weeks ago, one of my former students made his way down to Baltimore, had gotten in trouble, been to prison twice for selling substance, came through the program, earned an associate's or arts degree in 1 year. 4 years later, AA, BA, MA, decided to get a second master's. My phone rang about, as when I called you, at 6:55 in the morning, and I'm like, who is calling me? My former student. Brother Medley, this gentleman went from peddling drugs on the street to earning degrees, and today his new salary, legal salary, Brother Medley, official salary, is over $210,000 a year plus benefits, and he is a consultant engineer. Now, remind you, this was a street peddler of substance. But I said earlier, he's one of those gentlemen who really wanted to taste success, but he didn't have a coach or mentor who had the playbook with the plays in it to teach him how to apply the play based on situations. So, audience, believe in you, our young men, whether they're Black, Latina, Hispanic, Mexican American, Caribbean, deep inside, they are yelling out. They're crying out. They want to see a Brother Medley. They want to see a Brother Vance. They want to see not just physically, but they want that tangible relationship where if a problem comes, they really want to feel comfortable with being vulnerable and say, you know what, Medley, and I'm sure all these years you've experienced it, I'm having some problems. And one of the problems is they're hungry.
Right.
The next problem is, Brother Medley, I want to come to school, but we don't even have any, I don't have detergent to wash my clothes, and I'm wearing the same outfit, or I don't even have a pair of sneakers. Now, some people listen, a pair of sneakers, something to eat, that may not mean a lot to you, but you take a young person and we're trying to educate them. You can't educate people who are hungry, and you can't educate people to reach them, to help them when they feel bad. And they're at points in their life when they don't have access to the currency, capital, resource to buy X, Y, and Z. And if we're not strategically placed in position to help them, and if we're not strategically in place to help them and to be a part of their learning process, then shooting, killing, robbing, doing everything to the negative becomes the pathway just for existing. So we really have to be proactive, reactive, and we have to intentionally, and I love what you said so earlier, I can't take off this black skin. It didn't just arrive February 1, and then February 28th, Brother Manley, it goes into a closet, and then I get a new hue. This skin is 24/7, 12 months, 365 out the year. So every day, we don't have an option. We eat it, we live it, we experience it, we encounter it politically, religiously, philosophy, and even with the educational system. Many times, our young black and brown males and education, if there's not a Brother Medley, and I love the school, if your school didn't exist, think about all those young men. They would never see themselves in certain history books, certain math books. It's just amazing. You think about the cell phone. H.T. Hampton invented the cell phone. If they begin to know things about who invented it, he was black, you all, if they don't begin to see themselves
Correct.
and understand that, wow, it's not by happenstance that they're meeting a Brother Medley. It's not by happenstance that that they're being introduced to, and we say it historically, over and over and over, but they don't understand that it's the purpose. What he talks about, we shall overcome. The letters from the Birmingham jail. They don't get that in those mainstream, predominantly white institutions. They're not going to give them that information because that culture, not all of those folks believe, Brother Medley, and this is not putting somebody down, but when you have a curriculum that's set aside for the majority group, they don't even see themselves.
That's correct. That is correct. And see, this is the thing. I told you that Brother Vance, his company, was consulting with us, and there were some videos in there of these young men, exactly as he's described, that was saying how had it not been for him and his constant believing in them, that they would not have pursued the associates, the bachelors, the masters, or the doctorate. Because there was a couple of gentlemen that appeared in videos that had gone on to receive their doctorate degree, and they were on that road to prison or had been in prison and came out and changed their lives and turned it around. But had it not been for somebody like Brother Vance that is saying, I believe in you, and this is how you're going to change your life, and then they followed it, they wouldn't have gotten there. And I tried to quote you yesterday because there's a quote that you say, I think this is what it is, but if not, you know which one I'm talking about. What you praise, you raise.
Yeah, so when you praise a student or an individual, you can raise them. And, I always tell them, Brother Medley, real simple, especially for administrators out there listening this morning, moms, dads, uncles, grandparents, counselors, advisors, teachers, pastors, if you're listening today, encourage your people, but you encourage them by empowering them. Just you start off by writing down the word praise, then take a line and draw a line to that letter P. Because, see, when you praise people, you can raise them to new levels of academic achievement. And we have to praise them, Brother Medley. Sometimes they will, you give an assessment, and they'll complete the assessment. And with the assessment, may have been 5 or 10 questions, and they may have completed them all, but they've only had one correct on the assessment. Well, before we just write down poor, failure, celebrate them for, first of all, completing the task. Brother Medley, I want to celebrate you for completing the task, and then I want to come back and thank you because as you were completing the task, you did score 1% correct. That's very good. However, I'm encouraging you to revisit your notes and study again so that you can raise that 1% to the complete percent. We have to praise them where they are, and then that raise them to another level. And so many times, educators are so quick with males of color, quickly put the poor grade down. No, let's praise them for, listen, you got here on time. Let's praise them for having good academic discipline. Let's praise them for being collegial and professional, because what happens is this. That's some attention. That's recognition. That's an honor. And you know, Brother Medley, being a male, that's a code of honor. You don't embarrass me in public.
That's correct.
Now, if you embarrass me in public at 25 on the volume, as they say on the streets, pump up the volume, you don't have to worry. Because if you embarrass me standing loud at 25, I'm coming with the cavalry, Brother Medley, and your 25 was okay, but you're going to hear me, see me, feel me, and understand me vocally clearly at 2025.
That's right.
So,
that's right. No, yeah, absolutely. And see, this is the other thing, listening audience. when Jahon and I get on the line together, I have some of the biggest laughs because he has a wonderful personality. which also feeds into exactly what we're talking about in terms of building relationships. So he is hilarious. He has a very humorous perspective, but is very serious in terms of what he's saying. He's absolutely right in terms of, no, you don't. And even if they're little, like he said, you do that at 25, you're definitely going to suffer the consequences. But even when they're little, if a teacher embarrasses that child in front of his mates, you can rest and be assured he's going to come back at that teacher in a way that he might not have come back on if it was one-on-one.
And Brother Medley, that is so correct. And here's the whole situation. We're looking at now, and for those of you who are listening, I hope you're taking notes. And if you're not taking them fast enough, you can always call in and you can go back and re-listen. But there's a situation under the administration of President Obama, and it's called Sustainable Goals 2030. And this is why I'm bringing this up, because what's happening by the year of 2030, technology, innovation, and the job market, and under 2030, Brother Medley, on the workforce development, it's stating that by the year 2030, in particular in the field of education, it would only be 10%, 5 to 10% of males represented in the teaching roles, but the job market will be so strategically advanced that even to get a job on the skilled service side, that high critical thinking is going to be the platform. And if we don't revamp our educational programs and including thinking logically, clearly, analytically, they will not be able to process. And so what they've directed, the outcome would be our degree gentlemen will be working, doing physical labor, just doing stock.
That's correct.
And so can you imagine? So if the degree gentlemen are going to be doing stock, what about the young males who are not degreed and who cannot matriculate on that pathway of completing the application? So that was looking online. I said, let me apply for a job, Brother Medley. I want to see, because I haven't applied for a job in so long, I want to get the experience of what our young men are encountering. So when we say go apply for a job, I wanted to just feel and see what they look like. So I went to Indeed, and you'll see a post, and it tells you the description. Some will give you the salary and the benefits. Well, some of them, to apply, you have to go to multiple screens, and there are multiple things that you have to do. And then, Brother Matt, you have to attach documents. I said, wait.
Correct.
They want the males of color to upload a transcript.
Correct.
He doesn't have that. He needs to upload a resume. He definitely doesn't have that. He needs to upload references. What? He doesn't have that. He needs to give a statement why he wants to work. He's like, a statement why? In his mind, he's thinking, I have no money.
Right.
I need a job. You need someone. So he's already at a disadvantage. So although we have moved, and I remember coming to Patterson, I think almost 2 years ago, and I mentioned the Jetsons cartoon 1963 on a Saturday with that technology. I says, wow, this is 1963 for these young folks. It's innovation light years ahead. But you know what? They don't know how to navigate, to matriculate, to apply for a job. And if you make a mistake, the application doesn't get to the receiver.
Correct.
So that young male is on wait, thinking he has done the right thing. So now we really have to go back and teach the critical thinking, teach how to process applications. And they're trying to do this, Brother Medley, on a cell phone.
Correct.
Okay. First of all, cell phones are nice, but it does not give them let me repeat that, it does not give them full compatibility to the system as if they would have a laptop or a desktop.
Correct.
And so now what they should have seen, they didn't see, and they're behind. So their applications were incomplete. So it's so important that this education It's not just in the classroom, getting the barbers involved, getting the folk at the car wash involved. It's real important that they understand, your education is so important. And so parents, teachers, moms, dads, aunts, uncles, policymakers, we have to quit talking the talk, but we got to do the walk. Have we really assessed Workforce Development 2030? And also, when I said sustainable goals, Brother Medley, 2030, that means that if a young lad is at Patterson, school district, and hypothetically, and let's not think this is naive, you all, that a parent today, by the end of the month, could secure a position in Belgium. Did New Jersey prepare that young student to cross the Atlantic Ocean and get to Belgium and be able to matriculate on the reading, the writing, the arithmetic? Does the geography course line up with happening globally? Does the history course lines up globally? Does the English course lines up globally? Teaching them music. And it's just amazing, Brother Medley. Our young men, they're rapping today, but they have no clue. If you do a little history, you know that Beethoven had African ancestry. For those who don't know, that's why that bass line, the Flight of the Bumblebee, was so phenomenal, because his African ancestry came out through the music. Correct. So Beethoven, he had an uncle named Bruce, an auntie named Betty, so a brother Mark and a brother Vance. So we're all in that gene pool in that generation. So it's so important that we really take the time, Brother Medley. I know you laughing at that. I'm just speaking truth to power here. Think about these musicians. When they're rapping, they don't realize that, the Flight of the Bumblebee, the Fifth Symphony, okay, that's Beethoven. And so you look at that rap, come on, Master P, even Cardi B, they laughing that Cardi B is here, but guess what? Cardi B is not just here because she's popular today. She's borrowing from her cousin Beethoven. She's borrowing from Beethoven, her cousin, that she forgot to read about and talk about and celebrate their black ancestry. So it's here. And when our young folk can see, when our young men can see that, wow, my cousin, who you all are celebrating at, Rutgers, you're celebrating at the state institution, you celebrate at a New York State or a Morgan State or Cochran or a Michigan State U of M. Guess what? You're teaching Introduction to Music Appreciation, and I laugh because even good brother Gregory Handel Messiah, he had an introduction to black culture. But we don't talk about that. Correct. They understand, okay, think about it. Now, Handel did it classically. Yes, he did. And it was nice for the day and time. But Brother Medley from the Motor City, Quincy Jones says, I'm going to show you what Handel was breaking through because he borrowed from Beethoven. So I got to give you some little Southern rhythm and blues. So he put the Hallelujah chorus together. Can I get a witness, somebody? Yes, indeed. So, this is what it sounds like. Yes. Then, but now you feel the impact of the Quincy Jones version of the Heavenly Messiah, the Hallelujah chorus. So we have to bring that Hallelujah chorus in 20 and 22 with the excitement, the charisma, the respect, and the honor of recognizing the vitality of our beautiful, intelligent black scholars, Latino brown scholars, brown scholars, tan scholars, yellow scholars that listen. Brothers, it's in you. It's in you. We're teaching and giving you activities to draw it out, Brother Matt. And see, this is the issue, and I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm so glad I have a mic off button because I am laughing, but at the same time, I'm giving you those amens in terms of, like you just said, the makeup of Beethoven. Now, see, that little tidbit that you just dropped on them saying he had some African in his ancestry is never taught. Nope. That's never taught. But see, it's so many, and that's just one fact. But there are so many facts that are omitted to make people of color feel like they've had no contribution
when the truth of the matter is they've had so many. And that's it. Like in my school, we do a big thing. I mean, they know, like no one is going to put you down or leave you out based on your ethnicity or your skin color. I mean, that's a big part of what we do in my particular building. And so we see it in terms of even everything going on now with this whole debate and argument and dispute over critical race theory. And last year about this time, and I want to see if it happens again this year, because last year around this time, there was a couple of states, 2 or 3 states, that their legislators, their state legislators, city legislators actually passed laws that said the children could opt out of Black History Month studies. They could opt out of Black studies. I said, okay, the problem I have with that is me as an African-American kid, I have never had an opportunity to opt out of white studies. I've never had an opportunity to opt out of learning about George Washington and you know, Abraham Lincoln and on down the line. Never got it. But yet they are willing to give Caucasian children the opportunity, or in Caucasian families and parents, to opt out of learning about African Americans. So the fact that you would bring up the fact that Beethoven was now, you know, it has some African in his history as well, is an interesting little bit. But again, it helps our kids today to know you didn't just get here, one, with just slavery. There's more to our story than just slavery. For one, I love the fact that you brought up Quincy Jones. Musical genius, one of my favorite musicians on the planet. Was Quincy Jones, a musical genius, and like you said, was able to go back and take that Messiah and do what he did with that. But again, listening audience, this is how and Brother Vance, my guest this morning, Jahon Vance, this is how he shapes young African American males in that Baltimore area as they come through his program. You heard him talk about barbers. You heard him talk about being a philanthropist, and whenever he introduced himself, he has gone in his pocket to have these boys haircut. Okay, he's gone in his pocket to put clothes on these boys, to put shoes on their feet. And again, like you said, it's real hard to learn. And I know that, you know, those of us in education all know Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But it really is hard to learn whenever your focus is on your stomach rumbling. It is really hard to learn whenever you have a bunch of holes in your shoes. And so when you start addressing these things, this is where you begin to start forming relationships, and you get folks to start believing, because half the battle is having somebody to say, look, I believe in you. You can do this. And it's not be just lip service, that they can actually feel and see that you really do. But even if you have to show tough love, because in my education career, I've gotten away with murder. Kids would never tell the principal or the superintendent or whoever, yet the teacher next door would try the same tactics that I tried. They'd run right to the principal, because kids know sincerity. They know when you're doing whatever you're doing, if you're sincere about their best interest compared with just being mean. If they detect that you're just being mean, that's when you're going to get that pushback, or they're going to go rat you out, if you will. But if they detect, yeah, he acting nutty and crazy and yelling at me and throwing things and this, that, and the other, but he's doing that because he wants me to be better, they don't say a word in terms of going to tell on you.
Well, Brother Medley, the unique part is we have an audience. There is an invisible chip in minority folk, and there's a chip called discernment. And that chip discernment is always active. It works 24/7. Minority students and faculty are able to walk into a classroom, and they have that discernment chip is fully loaded and charged. And that student is able to look at Brother Medley on day one and says, wow, he's the man that I've been looking for. He is the active man missing in my life. My uncles didn't do it. Dad, grandpa, the neighbors, the pastors, they didn't do it. When we came through, Brother Medley, even the postman was in our community.
That's right.
He had a word, and he talked about education. You went to the local store in our community, the butcher who looked like us had a word about staying in school. So we got it. continuously. Well, when you look today and you said not being told on, that student knows that Brother Medley is nothing to play with. Now, I can, as they say, clap, and I just learned this term, clap back. I didn't know what it was. So something you clap back, so I would start talking. No. You clap back so smoothly. I said, well, help me out here. Because I come from with the English background. They said, no. Let me break it down for you. You know how when the students come in and they say something, sarcastic? I said, yes. And your response is so smooth that you put them in place. I said, yes. He said, that's called clapback. He said, but your clapback is so intense that when you respond, Brother Medley, they have to stop because the vocabulary is so high. They're trying to figure out what you said, so they look at their phone and they're saying the words. So they're saying the words real fast to find out what you meant, so they can understand. Oh wow, I made to look bad, but I didn't know I was made to look bad because his clap back is so smooth. And he says, you clap back so fast and so smooth, and you move on. You don't clap back and stay. He said, so we learn from you. When someone says something crazy, we clap back like you do. You clap and move. You don't clap and stay. And so the person who started to clap off, when you clap back and you move. The goal is for them to clap off. And when you clap back, they clap you out.
That's
you don't
absolutely
clap
right.
back, clap them out, and close them out and move on.
I'm sitting here rolling because first off, I just had this conversation this week with a couple of students. I said, first off, your vocabulary is low. The only way you know how to insult is by cursing or calling names. I said, but if you build, I had this kind of, if you build your vocabulary, you can insult one of your classmates and they won't even know they were insulted. And so you're absolutely right. And I'm laughing at the whole definition of the clapback because yesterday we did a session on Friday mornings. I have what we call morning meeting. I get the whole school together and we watched a video on the making of a Morehouse man. And I had already told them prior to the break, I do not want to see another hoodie in this building. I mean, if you need to wear the hoodie because it's cold, when you get to the door, take it off. But I have those that resist. So yesterday they thought I lost my mind because I was taking hoodies off of them. I was literally give me that hoodie. I was literally taking it off of them. And I made them sit up and sit back because what I shared with them was the same way folks say, that's a Morehouse man is the same way I want folks to say that's a Young Men's Leadership Academy man. So you are going to sit up. Your back is going to be up against the chair back. You're not going to be slumping. You're not going to be slouching. You're not going to be wearing your hood. You're going to be in uniform. So they watched that YouTube video, The Making of a Morehouse Man. And I'd say from this day forth, as you go about, folks are going to say that's a Young Men's Leadership Academy man. But again, they thought I had lost my mind when I was taking hoodies off. But they got the point that no, you're not going to. And interestingly enough, I'm looking at your website where it says, love yourself, look great, and feel confident. And what we tell our boys there is look sharp, feel sharp, we are sharp. So it's a derivative of that same thing. And I'm going to transition to that shortly. But before I get there, we were talking on the phone about this whole notion of support for African-American males mentally. And trust me, and that's what Dr. Vance and I were talking about before we went on the air about we have got to get to the point where African-American males, one, are comfortable in asking for help and receiving help, but there also has to be the help there for them. This morning I read Dr. Vance. When I kick off the show, I always read from two books, and they're devotionals, and they go by date. They're perpetual. They don't have the year, but they have the date. So for today, February 5th, out of Iyanla Vanzant's book, she said, it would be very nice if all people were nice. Loving people, unfortunately, they are not. It would be wonderful if while you are on the path to spiritual enlightenment, every person you met would wish you well or join you on the journey. Unfortunately, they will not. There are many people who are in a great deal of pain. And on certain days, these people will consciously or unconsciously inflict their pain on you. People will speak ill of you for no good reason. People will return your good deeds with unkind, unloving words and deeds. People will lie to you and on you, betray your confidence, selfishly hoard your property, and if they are really hurting, they may physically strike out at you. The human The human tendency is to offer insult for insult, hurt for hurt, ill deed for ill deed. The spiritual imperative is to offer love for insult, love for hurt, love to everyone regardless of the ill they may offer you. The human perspective is to hate those who hate you, take from those who have taken from you, harm those who have harmed you. The spiritual perspective is to recognize that the more unlovingly a person behaves, the greater is their need for love and healing. If you should encounter angry words or unkind actions on this day, take a deep breath, reach down within yourself, and greet the lack of love with love. Until today, you may have responded to human unkindness with human unkindness. Just for today, be devoted to greeting everything and everyone with the gentle kindness of love. Today, I am devoted to giving love to everyone and everything, no matter what he has said or done. Now, the reason I read that again, because I read it in the 6 o'clock hour, is because it's getting ready to connect to what Brother Vance and I are going to talk about in terms of black men, in terms of what they're struggling with mentally and why they may be doing what they're doing and the response that they get after they've done what they've done. And I'll let you take it from there.
Brother Medley, that was so well stated. And the reading, it's timely because with that, hurt people. Mean people are mean to nice people. And individuals who do not love themselves are unable to love others. And when it comes to our males of color, very, very early, there is a social philosophy, experimental theory that they've been introduced to. You don't cry. You don't show emotions. You must be tough. And you hold it all in. And if you cry, it's a form of weakness, and you are weak. And so just imagine from the time he's 2, from touching, they say, don't touch the stove. He touched that stove, and it's hot. Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. And each time something happens, he falls. And 5, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. You're a man, you're a man. No, you are a young child. You're not a man. You're a young child. And so we are putting pressure on that individual or those individual young guys early. And we're making them to be individuals. We groom them to be individuals. We put in these false ingredients. I call them superficial ingredients for manhood, for adulthood. And what happens? This has been 18, 13, 16 years, 25 years, 40 years. And you and I know there are even some of them 50 years. And mentally, Brother Medley and I will add Paul in there, walk down the street, and we all trip over some rocks. Brother Medley and I, along with Paul, we get up. Physically, Brother Medley and I get up, but Paul doesn't get up because the young girls laughed at us. Well, Brother Medley and I, we thought it was funny, we didn't want to fall, but we laughed. Paul gets up, but psychologically he's still down because of laughter. And that's humiliation and an embarrassment. And he's been told that, and he's in pain. And his pain caused him to shed a tear. Well, he wasn't supposed to do that according to how he was groomed. So now psychologically, Brother Medley, he has held that in. He's finished school, and for some of them, even college. Now working in professions. Now even a parent himself. But he has never been introduced to saying, I love you. He's never been introduced to saying, I have pain. And so 30, 40 years of this pain that he's harbored, and he's put in various mental compartments in his mind, body, and soul. One day, the negative reaction is so powerful that he snaps and he loses it, and he's no longer serving, or even, in fact, strike that he has not even served holistically as a productive citizen. And so what happens, now we're looking at mental illness, we're looking at not being logically, socially, and so then he has fathered a child. And what he has encountered, that's been passed on. And so, and here's the unique thing, Brother Medley, for some strange reason, in this country, for males of color, if a male of color cries, extend his hand for help, position himself by showcasing his vulnerability of not knowing the answer or have the solutions, he is deemed as weak, not competent, not confident, and he cannot serve at any level as a leader. So the majority class, if that male sheds a tear, he's human, Brother Medley. He has
Correct.
leadership, because all leaders are human. So under transformational leadership, in servant leadership theory that we were taught in grad school, that's okay for him to do that because he's a majority guy. So he can show that he's human when he sheds a tear. He can show that he's human when he extends his hand and say, I'm drowning, I need help. But I'm hoping that for those of you who are listening today, we need to really promote, embrace therapy, counseling, a social worker, a mental coach, or an activist to help us connect the dots. It's only, and here's the other part of that, Brother Medley. It's supposedly, if you are a male of color, if you go and get help, you're weak. You are just weak, and you're not worthy to be out front. That is the most asinine thing I've ever heard. It empowers you to help you, because at some point in all of our lives, we needed help, and we needed someone to coach us to the next level. It's only when we don't have those concepts and connectivity. So this is why now our young men are shooting, killing, robbing, doing the negative, because they've fallen into the culture of not operating under just the form of humanity. So we got to stop that, because we're killing our young folk, and in particular our black males. So, Brother Medley, every male needs a mental coach or a therapist, and that's why your role and what you do with that school, it's your role to ensure, you are the guardian, the shepherd, the keeper, of those young men's minds, body, and soul, to get them together. So when you took off the hoodie, you were doing what the chief commander had to do. You didn't comply, and that's all right. But guess what? Up in here, you will be in order, and you will be dressed accordingly. I didn't say you couldn't wear the hoodie to school. But when you come in, it comes off, because there's a uniform. The hoodie is an outside uniform. Inside, you govern yourself accordingly. So when you did that, and to get that emphatic expression, I can just see you throwing a book against the wall.
That's exactly right.
Your end on the desk, because you need to quickly establish and reestablish that I'm in control. I'm the head. When I say jump, you jump to attention. You don't ask any questions. It's it's time to perform. All minds, all hearts are clear. Yes, and sir. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Right. On my ship.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's exactly why it's being done. And you are so on point in terms of the examples that you gave, and the whole notion of, if you are, now, like you said, for the dominant culture, and it's interesting how so many things work that way, but we're talking about this whole notion of crying or asking for help or, seeing a therapist or whatever. It is definitely a double standard. It is definitely seen one way for Caucasians versus African Americans. And like he just said, in terms of, okay, if you, as the black man, cry, get angry or whatever, that's an issue. But you, as the white man, cry, then it's a whole different lens. All right. And interesting that you were talking, because there is a book, and I've just started reading it not too long ago. It's by Jason Wilson, and it's Cry Like a Man, Fighting for Freedom from Emotional Incarceration. And he's unpacking that whole notion of what you're talking about. Like, that's what we've been indoctrinated with from birth. As a man, you better not cry. You better not cry. You better not cry. Suck it up. Take it in. And that's what he's unpacking in this book, Cry Like a Man, Fighting for Freedom from Emotional Incarceration. So as I had the mic button off and I'm sitting here laughing and listening to Brother Vance talk, I'm perusing through his website. And it says exactly what he was just talking about as to why he created this clothing line and what it's about. It says, love yourself, look great, and feel confident. Now, if you go to the about line, it says, love yourself more every day, because it says committed to promoting self-love and care. And that's what we're talking about right now. We believe that when you love yourself, you feel good and confident. At the NàHoj Line, we promote self-love and care through our chic, clean designs. Designed with smart elegance and sophistication, our latest sports fashion wear is sure to make you love yourself. Or our latest sports fashion wear is sure to make you love yourself. Contributing to the community. Contributing to society is what we love to do. With the high quality and affordable products, we provide the latest looks while striving to support our community. We ensure that 10% of all sales go to minority male scholarships. So let's continue in this vein of what you just talked about in terms of black man loving himself.
And Brother Medley, I'm so glad you read that. As you were reading, I just began to go back to think. 2018. I lost my mother, and I was in front of a class teaching about 75 students. And I have a cousin who at that time was teaching at Clark Atlanta. And he texted me while I'm teaching. And so I'm looking at my iPad, and then the message comes across, you need to listen to me carefully. Don't stop because he knew I was teaching. Don't stop what you're doing. Now, I'm teaching. The next text says, Mom is no longer with us. I knew what that meant. Now, remind you, 75-plus students are in front of me, and I'm lecturing. I get the message, my mother has passed. Now, you know, Brother Medley, there are a million thoughts going through my mind.
Right.
So I continue the lecture, finish, walk briskly to my office, shut the door, turn the lights off, and I just began to weep. And that was just began to weep. Well, after that, I had to, do the services. The hardest thing for me to do was to do the eulogy as an only child, to bury your parent. That's just rough. A year later, my grandmother passed. Now, not to mention, I have been taking care of an aunt who was a former college president, and so she passed. So 18, 19, 20, the three leading ladies passed away. And the unique part, they all passed on a day when it was raining. I enrolled in grief counseling. And I tell folk, as men of color, when you have an issue, you got to reach out. So I enrolled in grief counseling. And one of the greatest things my counselor said to me, she said, when you want to have a conversation with your mother, your grandmother, or your aunt, just write a letter and articulate how you feel at the time. Brother Medley, that was the most profound statement that I ever heard in my life. Because, these three leading ladies are gone.
Right.
And every decision that I made because of what they had done politically through education and politics, it impacts what I did. And I could always run information by them. So my father had passed away, so it's like, wow, I don't have dad. I don't have these three leading ladies. And so going through grief counseling, it helped me to reconnect the dots, to reassess where I am, but also to identify the pain. And Brother Medley, she said, why don't you create something in commemoration to show your love for them? And what would your mother, your aunt, and your grandmother, based on what you do with your passion, how would they have you to be a voice message of encouragement to other people? Brother Medley, about 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and I had a piece of paper by the side of the bed, and I just started sketching. Never knew I could do it. Just started sketching, and thoughts started coming to my mind. And I know that you have a couple of the items. My piece is my Freedom T-shirt. And,
that's correct.
When I understood as a male of color, Brother Medley, when you have peace, you may not have $1 million in your pocket. It might even be your payday. And you and I both know that even on payday, we still have no resources because we're excited that the direct deposit actually occurred. But now we have to transfer all that currency out, and then we're waiting for the next direct deposit. So the piece is you have freedom because your bills are paid. You can do what you need to do. So I understood that my peace is my freedom. I'm walking in my purpose is one of our shirts. And then here's one, Brother Medley, the T-shirt that says, resolve differences and not relationships. And when folks were called and they'll say, well, what does that mean? I'm saying, Brother Medley, I'm hurt. I have some situations happen, some situations that occurred to me and in my life. I need to resolve those internal differences and not destroy the personal relationships with myself, meaning that I don't go in and harbor and stay in the house. I stop being proactive and a contributor, a positive person. So the relationship of loving me, caring about me, feeling good about myself, knowing that I am a winner. And so with the clothing line, it's really designed to empower, want folk to feel good, feel comfortable. Because when you look good, when you love yourself and you feel good and you're confident, you can accomplish what you need. And then we know that we can say a number of things, go to school, go to school, go to school. So maybe they get in college, but they don't have a bus pass or a pass to get on a train. We forget that, we got them enrolled in school, but now how do we get them to the university or to the college?
Right.
So this is one of the things. So last year, we were able to finance 30 guys with bus passes for the whole year to get them back and forth to the college because, some of them needed to get to school. So giving back and that bus pass, for some people, it's just a bus pass. No, it's not, because guess what? Not only could that young man get to school, but guess what? One guy called, he said, I want to make sure I'm not abusing the bus pass scholarship. I said, well, what do you mean? Now, Brother Medley, he called. He says, well, I've been using the bus pass to go to work. I said, that's fine. He said,
right.
I said, listen, the first pass you were taking was to make sure you had a way to get to school. We love it. We celebrate it. And he says, I found a job, but I said, no, you have free access to use that pass to travel. He said, so even to go visit some of my family members? I said, yes, sir. Now, remind you, even in the city, because his family lives on the other side of the city, it wasn't feasible to walk because of the mileage, but he could get on the bus. And so people don't realize in giving back, but he thought initially he was violating the bus pass scholarship. I said, you still have a 3+ something GPA? Yes, sir. I said, he said, in fact, it went from a 3.3 to a 3.9. He said,
All right now.
he could now afford to get to the library, and he could also use the computer lab because he doesn't have internet service at home. So he can get to the school and stay as long as he wants because now he just finished and walk outside and get on the bus and take the bus home versus staying there and hoping someone would be nice to get him to halfway home in inclement weather. So loving yourself, feeling great, feeling confident, we believe that. But we also did this too, Brother Medley. We have some resources out there. So for persons who may be dealing with grief or need a counselor, we put some links out there where they can contact the American Counseling Association, Confidence in Youth Services, Grief Counseling, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the National Association of Black Counselors, Self-Care Resource Center. So we put some resources so that sometimes when people are shopping, sometimes people, they're looking for resources to help themselves. And my goal is, I've had some issues when I lost my loved ones. That's painful. I love my parents. But you don't anticipate your parents dying. We know that people will die. But we want our parents to be alive forever and ever and ever. Well, that was a major impact in my life. And the greatest thing that I did was to go and talk with a counselor. And not only did I talk with the counselor, but I participated in the sessions. And she made it very clear. You have to learn triggers. You have
right.
To, and for our black males, our brown males, faculty members, when you're teaching John and Paul and Mark, you have to understand when you yell at him publicly, that's a trigger.
Correct.
So when you yell and you yell at him, and when that trigger is released, whether he cursed you out, not saying that's correct, but if he cursed you out or double clap back and the whole class is laughing at you and you cannot regain your control, that's because you introduced a trigger.
Correct.
That he has not mastered containing. And so, Brother Medley, just being vulnerable, just being upfront, even today, there are days when it rains. That's a trigger for me.
Right.
So I have a playbook. And in my playbook, I have some plays. So depending on how I feel, I have some poems I'll read. Of course, I'll read from Genesis to Revelation, oh bless his high name.
Right.
I'll find some gospel music. I will watch certain movies. So I created plays in my playbook because I'm still human. And sometimes a trigger could be, I could be in the community and I could see a mother who resembles my mom.
Right.
That's a trigger at sometimes. So that you don't lose it, you have now learned how to adapt to move forward. And this is what we have to share with people. So we're saying with the NàHoj Line, love yourself, celebrate yourself, but connect with a counselor, a therapist, a social worker, a peer mentor, a coach, someone that you can be vulnerable to, and someone who will simply tell you the truth in a passionate manner to assist you while being your mental navigation tool for safety. You need that. The damnable is when you don't connect. And I believe there's a scripture that says when you're sick, you need a physician.
Correct.
So when you're out there, mom, dad, aunts, uncles, educators, policymakers, you have to understand when working with students, males of color, please, you need to understand the trigger of disrespect,
right,
humiliation,
yep,
the trigger of looking down on them,
correct,
the trigger of your vocabulary. Well, you shouldn't study math. You go to the Army. That's a trigger because you wrote him off.
Right.
Please be inclusive, supportive, and respect. And think about it. It's only one race. and their race is human. And so we want to celebrate, and many times educators have been the triggers to cause negative behavior.
Correct.
And then we'll go into the office, oh, Brother Medley, that student Paul, he is crazy.
Correct.
He's just out of control. You saying, really? Well, he's in my class, and he has the highest score. He's
correct.
disciplined. But Brother Medley has already set the foundation, and he knows that when he messed up, Paul, I need to see you after class for a few moments.
And
he
see,
knows to pull him to the side.
Exactly. And it's interesting, those triggers that you just mentioned, even me as a grown man, those are still my triggers. Those are my triggers that will set off all kinds of emotional, the disrespect, that whole list that you listed off. And there's a couple other things you mentioned as you were talking earlier and now in terms of, I know we are educators in terms of, mathematical equations, and, we start talking about figurative language and literary devices. And I know we start talking history. I know we start talking, PE, but there are some things you mentioned there that is beyond the 1, 2, 3 ABC. And that is, you just mentioned about the young man. All right, we say go to college. Now you say, oh, wait, not just go, but he needs a way to get there. So that was one example you gave. And then you gave example earlier about applying for a job. Because that's another thing we're saying. You got to be able to get a job one day. We're trying to prepare you to get a job, but we don't prepare in terms of, well, this is how you fill out a job application. And the way we filled out a job application when me and you were kids is not the same way folks apply for a job today. But we don't take those type things into consideration. And then when you couple it with now what you just said, and once we move into the mental piece of it, because this is an interesting combination, as you described, between the clothing line and the resources for grief and mental struggles. Now, it's interesting that you would connect those two because, again, as African Americans, Dr. Vance knows we love our clothes. we love our clothes. And he says, selling sports apparel such as caps, hoodies. Oh, my God, my boys love them hoodies like you would not believe. Hoodies, joggers, T-shirts, and more. A couple weeks ago, we were virtual. And one of my 5th grade students, because we were on the camera, he went in his closet and said, Mr. Such and Such, I bet your sneakers don't cost as much as mine. I bet you don't have this pair. He went and he put that particular Jordan on the camera. And I told him, I said, let me tell you something, little such and such. You know what? First off, we're not raising little gangsters. And secondly, I don't need $300 on your feet with a 10-cent mind.
Thank you.
So he looked, and then the other day when we were live, he was one of the ones that got sent down to the office. I said, you remember what I told you when we were on the camera? He looked, yeah. I said, I'm going to tell it to you again. Because talking about cap, he came down with the little cap flipped up. I said, because he thought when I called him to the office, I called him because he had the cap on. I said, mm-mm. I said, I didn't call you because you had it on. I had it because of the way you were wearing it. I said, plus the fact that it had no business being on in the building. So the way that you were wearing it tells me that you think you're a little gangster. And I told you the other day that I don't need $300 on your feet and 10 cents in your head. So he just again looked, but he knew what I was talking about. But I'm saying all that to say we love our clothes, our sneakers, our hoodies, our caps. We love those things. So now you have folks on your website looking at the clothing, but at the same time, you have a tab for resources. And as you were talking, I was posting every last one of those links on my Facebook page. Then I took a screenshot of the entire page and put that on it. The American Counseling Association, Confidence in You Services, Grief Counseling, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, National Association of Black Counselors, Self-Care Resource Center. Those are the links that are on the NàHoj Line webpage. So you're in a sense, you're meeting them where they live. You know they're going to go there for the clothes, but now I got an opportunity to talk to you about being able to take care of yourself.
Yes. And but it's needed. I mean, and when we talk about mental health, even a part of that is too, I have some people who call in, and when I get a chance to talk to them, I talk to them about the holistic approach of mental health. Go to bed at a certain time, eat a proper diet, get into a physical fitness program, start some form of exercise, look at what you're eating. For folks who drink soda and all the extra caffeine. I tell them you can't go cold turkey overnight. So intentionally wean yourself away from the beverage. And I have bottled water on the side of the bed. I have bottled water by the computer. I have a bottled water in the vehicle. But I drink water. I said in the post, getting all the extra sugar. Intentionally get an apple, cut it up, and you put the apple in your water. So you drink it. It has a little flavor for some people. Then after that, you can eat it. I said, so learn to change your diet plan, because all of that works with your mental health. Because sometimes people, we gain, you gain extra weight, you get extra pounds here, and psychologically, your body image can cause you to look a certain way. And we want to feel good, look good, and be confident. So part of that is, hey, I'm loving myself by eating appropriately. I'm loving myself that, you know what, I'm going to go to bed early. And if I stay up later, I am going to make sure I'm getting my naps. And Brother Medley, believe me, at 50 plus, I do take naps.
I know that's right. I do too.
and it's needed. And so just resting. And the whole goal is, I want people to realize that life is meant to be lived and lived well, but it comes with loving yourself. And so for our young men who weather the NàHoj Line, I want them to know that, first of all, NàHoj is German for John, which means God's love. So the name means love. So we want them to know that you're wearing apparel that you're wearing apparel that you are endorsing, that you love yourself and you are loved. So since you love yourself, there's a certain behavior that you have. When you love yourself, you endorse the actions that are being syndicated towards you. So if they're not positive, you dismiss them. And so we want people to realize and recognize that when you love yourself, you respect yourself, you respect others, and you're moving forward. So we're really excited about helping our young men, across the country to really get to where they need to be, to have that connection. So I'm grateful for your show because what it does, it affords me an opportunity to talk to you live. That's nice, but also to empower our listeners, mom, dad, even the young folk. And really, Brother Medley, we're just beginning the work. We're really just beginning the work. It's so much work available for working with males of color from early childhood, from daycare, even before they get to you and I. The work is needed, but we really have to get those men and women who are making these ungrateful decisions of destroying our culture and celebrating. Let's not trigger our males of color to be. Think about it. There are some folks. I had a colleague, and I'll say it this way, Brother Medley. She was teaching literature and humanities, and she implemented at the college level a behavior grade. So I said, a behavior grade? I said, last I checked, because, I served as the dean. I said, last I checked, you do not have any degrees in counseling.
Correct.
Nor are you certified. So how are you justifying labeling a person? So what she would do, a majority young lady, if a male of color, and you experience it, if it's something that we disagree with, we're not nasty. We just say, hey, Brother Medley, that's a different approach, but I want you to know that I have a different view. So in her class, if a male of color elevates his hand and he's recognized, if he has a different viewpoint than what she has, that's called a behavior grade. And she uses that in a punitive manner. That's a trigger. So
absolutely.
And one thing about males of color, for those of you who are listening, please put this in your mental directory. Males of color live for persuasive rhetoric and argument. And when I say that, if it's two football teams playing, we love to talk about our teams, who's great, who's not great. We're not fighting each other, but we love to show how much we know, and we love to show how we can discredit your strong person strategically. That's an art, and we love to do it. That's not disrespectful. So stop labeling our young males and stop discreating a culture where they cannot communicate and everything that they say is wrong.
Absolutely.
That's a trigger.
You're right. And see, that's the thing. That's the beauty of a school like mine in terms of knowing our population is predominantly African American and Hispanic. We get a chance to really drill down and learn and focus and know, because our whole curriculum for our school is based on the book, How Males. Let me see. How Males Learn. How Males think. I got to think of the book. I see it in front of me. I'm trying to think of the title, but it's based solely on males and how males learn. How boys learn, how males learn, or whatever. I got to think of the title of it. But exactly what you're doing is what our teachers are learning and understanding, that what you might think is aberrant behavior for this population is not. So and that's the advantage of being in a small setting. So you're absolutely right. And as you go around school districts, particularly in urban areas, all the teachers need to understand like that whole notion of triggers. Because like I said, for me, that list that you listed off are still triggers for me. And this is the other thing, what you were saying earlier about in terms of having your coach or your counselor or your therapist or whatever. Because see, and based on an experience that I've recently gone through and had, I don't think I'll be telling anybody again, just get over it. Because people are very quick to say, oh, just get over it. Life goes on. Not realizing that stuff stays with you forever. Now, you have to, like you said, you got to get a game plan. You got to manage it. You have to get your playbook together to say, okay, when this trigger comes about, I'm going to do this. When this comes on and this reminds me of that, I'm going to do this. You got to have that. But based on my experience, I doubt very seriously if I'll ever, and I've been guilty of doing it, of telling anybody, oh, just get over it. Oh, life goes on. Oh, time heals all wounds. That is true, but you got to be able to do something, as you just said, get that game plan or that playbook to help you cope when those things arise.
Right. I mean, and Brother Medley, I heard folks say, oh, just get over it. No. You can't get over when you don't have resources and the skill, the strength, and the navigation plan to do that. And then even with growing and moving towards overcoming, sometimes you need a little push.
Correct.
You need a table to stand on. You need a ladder to help you climb up to reach. And so just telling people, oh, just get over it. You know, I was conferencing with a faculty member and a male of color. And this guy, I kid you not, majority faculty member, very, very staunch, very, and created a culture that you couldn't challenge, you couldn't ask questions. And so the young man wrote several papers. And on each paper, he earned like a 70. And when I tell you to listen to him, I, did the interrogatives, what are the sources? Brother Medley, he knew the sources. He did not plagiarize. He said, this is my direct quote. This is a paraphrase quote. Some said, okay. And he carefully read to me the instructions for the papers, and he wrote accordingly. Because his views were totally against what she believed. It wasn't the content, nor was it subject-verb agreement, nor were the...
I'm actually, I'm doing a little live stream of part of it here. They can't hear everything that's going on your end, but they can hear my voice. So I was letting folks know that I'm here interviewing you. We're about to come to the end of our interview. I've been interviewing Dr. Jahon Vance, and he is an educator. He's actually a Renaissance man, and he is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And we're talking about African American males and so many issues that we have, but they can be dealt with if handled in the right way, in the correct manner. What we do is we fumble the ball because we think every situation is to be handled the same way, and it's just not the case. It's just not true, and that's why we get what we're getting. That whole thing that I read from Iyanla this morning about people who are hurting, you can apply that to black men. Now, I'm not saying white men don't hurt too, because they do. But the truth of the matter is, because we're dealing with this community, we need to understand the community, how to deal with it. And he's done a masterful job of connecting a clothing line with resources, whether it be mental health, whether it be physical health, or what have you. We're going to have to do a round 3, because believe it or not, we not only been talking an hour, it's almost an hour and a half. It is 8:25 and we're still going strong, which means Jahon is going to have to get another date to come back, because these issues that we are talking about are critical. I see it every day. I live it personally as well. They are critical issues. That young lady that jumped off that building the other day,
yeah,
she was struggling on the inside. There was no indication on the outside that she was struggling on the inside like that. The girl was gorgeous. 30 years old, a lawyer, living in a high rise in New York City, also on the TV show Extra. All right. Now, if all of that wasn't enough to kind of sustain you, I don't know. But clearly that lets you know that what's going on the inside will override everything else that's going on the outside. My god brother, and because you were talking earlier about peace, one of my god brother's favorite saying is, you can't put a price tag on peace of mind.
Nope.
And so, as we get ready to wrap up, and I'm going to have to get you another date, Brother Vance, because the conversation shall continue. What we're going to do is I'm going to give you the opportunity to promote. You could say anything except a dollar amount, but you can give the websites, your contact numbers, anything else that you want to share about you, anybody you want to shout out, any of that good stuff. I can tell you now, I'm going to give the website for it. I'm going to allow him to give it again, but it's just like it sounds. It is the NàHojLine.com. That's NAHOJLINE.com. I encourage all of you to go there. If you're on my Facebook page, it's been splattered all over the place, so you can link to it from there. All the resources was put on there one by one. But again, it is the NàHoj Line, and I will be ordering some more because I love that. As a matter of fact, I wore that shirt to church last Sunday, Brother Vance. Okay. I wore the piece is because last Sunday was really snowy. We had snow on the ground last Sunday, so we were all really dressed down last Sunday. So I put on a pair of jeans and put on that shirt. My piece is my freedom, and that's what I wore to church on last Sunday. But again, inspirational lines within the clothing, lines such as that. There was another one that came up that I know I'm going to get. I forget which one it was, but when I go back through the catalog, I'll know it when I see it. But at this point, you have the opportunity to promote anything you'd like to promote. The only thing you can't say is the cost. So I'm going to shut the mic button off, and it's yours.
Listen, Brother Medley, thank you. Listen, we want you to support the NàHoj Line. And so for the month of February, we're just saying, listen, come, purchase, and we're just really want to make sure that we can give resources back to our young men. You have the website. You can also call us directly at area code 443-917-6550, 443-917-6550. Remember, the NàHoj Line. Love yourself, look great, and feel confident. We have caps, hoodies, joggers, T-shirts, and more. So for men, women, from 0 to 109, we have fashion design just for you. Brother Medley, it's been real. I can't wait to part 3. And so thank you.
Well, I thank you because, again, the first off, the subject matter is so important. And I encourage everyone to go to the website and order something because, as I said earlier, a part of the proceeds is actually going to those scholarships that you heard. Now, everybody thinks scholarship is always about just books or college, but the ability to provide bus passes, that's a scholarship. The ability to provide a book, that's a scholarship. The ability to provide a haircut or a tie or a suit, that's all contributing to the success of the young man that we're trying to help. So, like we said, it's one thing to say to go to college, and it's another thing to say, but this is going to happen. This is the way you got to get there. You got to eat. You got to this, that, and the other. So I encourage you to purchase. If you don't purchase nothing but one item, purchase one item. If everybody listening purchased one item, that would at least be 30 people. I don't know how big the listening audience is. I don't care because I always tell people if nobody else is blessed by it, I am. But I know there are some people who are listening. So I do encourage you to go to TheNAHojLine.com. And matter of fact, as soon as you go there on the homepage, it says shop now. But I also encourage you to go to that resources tab. Because that resources tab is no joke. And like I said, I shared each one of the resources individually on my Facebook page. So go to the NàHoj Line, or if you can't get there, go to my Facebook page. Either way, you can get there. But again, there's resources, the American Counseling Association, Confidence in You Services, Grief Counseling, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the National Association of Black Counselors, and the Self-Care Resource Center. There are links for all of them there. Again, Jahon, we will definitely be back in touch. I might have to get you one day to get on the big screen on our Promethean board to talk to our boys, because I meet with them I meet with the entire setup on Friday mornings from 8:40 to 9:20. So I might have to schedule one Friday morning, if you're available, to get on the big screen on the Promethean board and let them see you and hear you.
Listen, I welcome that. Yes.
All right, so we got to hook that up and make that happen. I'm going to go back on NàHoj now that I know the website. I'm going to go on there, and I know the shirt that the last one, one of the last ones you introduced. I saw the text message and I immediately said, "Oh, I'm getting that one."
Yeah.
So
and in fact, what we've done too. So items that you don't see on the website, you will see the PDF catalog.
Right.
So the catalog has everything as well too. So we have some people, Brother Medley, they say they don't want to use technology, and we don't get offended. So to pay. So what they may do, they can do the PDF, and they can mail they can use their money orders to pay. And so, some people.
Yes, you're right.
I understand. So
you're right.
We designed it for everyone. So you can log on, and you can print out and mail through, because guess what? The post office still works.
I know you say money orders. I know that's right.
Yeah.
Well, in any event, man, you have a wonderfully blessed day, weekend, and week. Truly, my good brother, Dr. Jahon Vance, is first of all, servant on all, and he will transcend all. Truly, truly, truly. Renaissance man, good-hearted brother, good-spirited brother. He will make you laugh. Like I said, when we get on the phone together, he had me rolling, and he's had me rolling this morning. But again, go out and check out the site, TheNàHojLine.com, TheNAHojLine.com. All right, Jahon, we'll be in touch.
Listen, thanks. Have a great one.
Thanks, you too. All right, that ends another episode, a fun-filled and informative episode of The Reading Circle with Marc Medley.